Welcome back to Mornings with the Mandalorian, the show where we talk about our first reactions, filmmaking techniques, and connections to the greater Star Wars universe within the Emmy Award-winning show The Mandalorian, now streaming on Disney+. I'm your host, Spencer Chandler, and with me is my co-host, Christian Miller.
Dank Farrik, it's good to be here.
Yes, sir. I ran out of breath doing the intro again.
That feeling when your Farrik is so dank.
Is that officially the name of the episode?
Yeah, sure.
I like
Whatever.
it. I like it. There's not a lot of good quotes that we can do from this episode that are just like stupid. So we'll do that. So, Christian, how's it feel to be back talking about the Mandalorian?
Pretty fun, even though I'm finding it harder to like really get my thoughts down in these episodes because we have more time to prepare than last year, and I instinctively procrastinate every time this time. Whereas I would immediately get stuff down and ready because we would be recording like the night after last year.
Yeah.
So I
Hey,
don't
we
know
can
because
we
like
can start recording the night after if you want.
we can discuss that at a later date. But but so yeah, on Saturdays generally or Saturdays or Sundays is when I start like feeling like, oh yeah, I got it. I'm not like I get the episode. I don't have to go back and examine stuff,
Yeah.
or like, or I'll just be in a state of like I don't feel like thinking about Star Wars. I have so many other things that I would rather think about. Um, but it's starting to get to the point where I can like develop an actual perspective before we record, um,
When
in a more like intentional way, not in
so
a oh crap, I have 20 minutes until we record kind
yeah,
of way.
last year, how far after we recorded did the episodes come out? Like what day of the week? Weren't we releasing on like Mondays?
Um, so we would record Saturday night, and then yeah, I think it was Monday night. Wasn't I pushing for Sunday mornings though.
Yeah, you were, but I never was able to get them edited in time because I always had like
Yeah,
scouts or something. Uh, now we
but yeah,
just feel
Monday
like,
mornings was
yeah.
the right
Now we
time.
just feel like Wednesday mornings is a better time for like any scheduled podcast that we have, while The Mandalorian does come out on a Friday, and give people time to watch it, I guess. But uh,
But it is weird though that like now even though you're in college, you're able to record it and edit it within like a night.
yeah, it's because I try to get all my homework done now in time, and I have less responsibilities technically um, than I did back home. So I mean, it's easier. So like last week, a little behind the scenes. I've been told by a fellow podcaster that he likes behind the scenes things in podcasts. I stayed up until 2 a.m. editing our podcast and making sure that it got up on all the platforms and making sure that all our social media posts went live at the same time. It was a fun little experience I had last week. It was my first time, uploading this to YouTube and making sure we had all of our social media posts going up and running, which I think we've been doing pretty well at posting on recently. So yeah, we got a few followers on the Twitter, got some followers on Instagram. We have a lot of likes on the Facebook page.
Yeah. And we are also officially on the Now This Is Podcasting website.
Yeah,
If you guys are aware of that, it's basically an aggregator of Star Wars podcasts. So, and we're working on like fully updating our information, but we're documented there for the mornings with the Mandalorian, and there's like categories on that website that you can check out other podcasts for. And it's really good at like sort of grouping together different podcasts, and like it documents the hosts and everything. So if you're looking for more Star Wars podcasts, definitely check that website out.
yeah. And if you want to find ours, we're listed uh, under the small screen category. If you want to look that up, I don't know if there's a way to just search podcasts. I don't. I haven't found a way to just like type in the search bar a certain podcast. So just look at the small screen. for us, and we'll be there. I think eventually we will be under the general Star Wars category, because he put us up on there before we rebranded, and we've had discussions with the creator of this website, trying to get us rebranded on the website and trying to get our information up to date. So within the next 2 weeks, Christian, we will be updated on the website to the Last Star Wars podcast. So I know I don't actually have to tell you that because you can log into the Twitter too and see that I was DMing him. But yeah, so we had a nice conversation. He's a really nice guy, and he was like, he really wanted to put us on there because he's trying to get Mandalorian podcasts up. So if you're looking for other Mandalorian podcasts to listen to other than just us, you want somebody else's opinion, go to Star Wars, or is it now this is podcasting.com? I think either way, the link will be in the description of the episode or down in the description if you're on YouTube. So go check it out. Go check out the website. It's very cool. And we might link his Twitter below too. See if I remember to do that. But yeah, this episode of The Mandalorian, man, how about it?
Yeah, chapter 11, the Heiress. I'm realizing now that like the episode titles are so intentional. The fact that like on Disney Plus it just says the chapter name, and then it's only until the title card comes up that it reveals like the name of the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get to that in a minute as we like do our synopsis. But yeah, how did you watch this episode? How did you react to it?
Funny. I watched this episode with my girlfriend Katie again. We watched this episode together because she has now wanted to make a weekly tradition of us watching The Mandalorian together. So she has not seen Clone Wars and is not really big into the Mandalorian lore. So in the middle of this episode, I'm going to back away from my mic so I don't bust my mic. But halfway through the episode, I just go, heck yeah, let's go. I love this so much. This is the greatest episode of The Mandalorian I've ever seen. Yeah. And she freaked out because she had no clue why I was freaking out. And this was before the helmet ever came off. And I was like, I recognize that helmet. And yeah, it was very cool. And I was having a wonderful time. And my girlfriend was very scared for my personal well-being. But I enjoyed it a lot. What about you?
So I had been up late at night playing NBA 2K, and then
as one does.
Yeah, and then I think I checked TikTok or whatever, and then I checked Twitter, and Phil Shostak, I forget his official title, but he works within the art department of Lucasfilm, who's very active on social media. He did his like reminder of like, oh, we got 2 hours to go until The Mandalorian drops a new episode. And so I was like, I think I can make it. I think I can stay up. And so I just
Wait, so you were already up at 1 a.m. and you were like, I'll stay until 3.
Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I'll just do one more game of 2K. And then I watched the episode in the dark. And yeah, it was, I don't know. I had a weird reaction the first time. It might have just been because I needed sleep, but like in the moment of watching it, it was just like, okay, this isn't as a singular episode. It's the first viewing. I was not particularly interested in it because I tend to lean towards the single episode, like the episodic sort of stuff, and the stuff that doesn't like rely on like canon, I guess, just sort of like the little side adventures, which is why I liked The Passenger. But that was my first viewing. I watched it again 2 times the next day.
Wow.
Once with my sister, once with my dad. And at this point, I really love the episode.
Dude, I will say with confidence that this is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian. Both seasons. I love this episode. It is hard though between this one and the finale from last season. I really like both, but I think this one, I love her so much, dude. Like, she was one of my favorite characters, and I like it. So it was cool to see her. in live action without giving it away before we talk about it.
But yeah,
yeah.
that's where we differ though, because like I love the experience of like watching the finale and like wanting to, you know, for them to finally like be free of Grand Moff or Moff Gideon and a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
to finally like be on his own with Baby Yoda. But like, I don't know, if we're going off singular episodes, Chapter 6, The Prisoner, is just, I keep on talking about this, but
Yeah.
I think just like it's just thoroughly the most enjoyable episode for me. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty to love in these types of episodes too, and
Yeah.
it's starting to feel a little bit like Clone Wars
Yeah, it
in
is.
the way they're doing it.
This will also be normally this would be a shorter episode of the podcast. There's not as much, like super in detail stuff for us to break down. It's very straightforward. So what we're gonna do at the end of this episode is Christian's gonna do a music segment about the music of the Mandalorian, which I think I'm very excited to do. Another thing I really love about this episode, before we get into the synopsis, is the fact that it was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And last season's episode that she did, it was very character based and like based around like the interaction between characters. Whereas in this episode, it's very much action driven, and there's a really good, just shows the range in her directorial prowess that
Yeah,
I don't want to say I'm proud of her, because like she can do it, she's done it before, but it's really awesome to see how far, like how different her episodes can be, but still just be
yeah,
bangers just every
yeah.
time.
But she, in both episodes though, she's got a grip on like getting the actors to portray what they need to portray,
Yeah.
and she's had some tough visual like things to pull off, like that the ATST battle scene in episode 4, like that's like in pitch black darkness, and
Yeah.
like there's a lot of you have to figure out in order to pull that scene off. And then with this, a lot of fight scenes on a boat,
Yeah.
the Gazanti freighter.
I
There's
remember at
a lot
the
of
end of the
intricacies that,
episode, I didn't know who directed this episode. And then I was, I think for some reason I assumed it was like Jon Favreau again directing. And then, it's got that feel to it. And then I saw the Bryce Dallas Howard, and I was like, whoa, like that's
Mhm.
awesome, because I would have not have expected her to do like a very action heavy episode, because just not the style that we saw her do last season. But yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I hope that she can I hope she does more than just one episode this season, because I very much like her. Did she just do
Did
one
we?
episode?
I don't remember if that was ever released.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
there's more directors this season, so because we haven't gotten to Filoni's episode, we haven't gotten to Robert Rodriguez's, and we haven't gotten to Carl Weathers. And Rick Famuyiwa, is he
No,
doing this
no.
season?
Deborah Chow and Rick Famuyiwa are not doing episodes this season,
Yeah,
because
because
they're,
Famuyiwa doing Cassian,
yeah, and Deborah Chow is doing something.
Obi-Wan,
That's right.
all
Yeah.
of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, so they're doing
Um,
that. So they're neither of them
and
are doing this.
and it might be like Filoni and Favreau might have two. Um, I'm not sure. But I know Filoni's is not next week, but the week after that.
Hmm.
Um,
I
and we'll get,
guarantee that's the Ahsoka episode then, because
I was
he,
gonna I was gonna hint at that, but okay.
yeah, if Filoni's doing it, that's probably when they're gonna do it, just because he
Yeah,
knows the story better than anyone.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, he's the one I trust most. Not really trust most, but he's the one I expect to be the best at it, because he knows the story the best and knows how to tie it in correctly. Um, yeah,
yeah.
and not make it too
Okay,
fan service.
yeah. And so before we get into the synopsis of chapter 11, I would like to say that last week we sort of debated the egg sort of situation with the passenger,
Hmm.
and my opinion has changed a little bit, but also I've seen new information that has helped me like realize or come like fully develop the feelings that I had when I first watched it into more of an opinion. And so basically, it's less about like whether the eggs are alive or not, and more about the fact that like from the frog lady's perspective, it wasn't, those parts of the plot weren't given the same weight they should have been, and it felt more like it was a comedic beat rather than a dramatic beat, because we care for Frog Lady. We want her to survive, and she is very sympathetic because she's trying to like help her line survive. And so the way that it was treated more as like a Baby Yoda gag is what I realized. Like that's the actual issue here, and it took me sort of to like go on Twitter and like find some of these conversations to discover that. And what I hate about this fandom is that a lot of fans, especially women in the fandom, they come out with these criticisms and they are just saying, "Hey, I love this show, but this is something that I wish they could have done better." And then these clickbait article sites like Comic Book Movie News, or I forget the title, and even Vanity Fair this week, which who's normally not a clickbait site, like they're reputable. They still came out with an article like, "Oh, people are mad about eggs, and this is, Star Wars fans are ungrateful," and like this is like it's gotten to a point where it's sickening, not only on the article side but on the personal level. So many different people in the fandom just they overblow these valid criticisms into just people being emotional or people hating Star Wars when it's not even, they're not even listening. So I just want to get that out of the way. And even though I have that opinion, I still really do like the episode of The Passenger, and I don't think everyone has to have the same opinion about how they did that the egg beat. But yeah, that's, I've sort of come around full circle with that opinion. Even though I love the overall structure of that episode and how fun it was. Anyway, suspense synopsis.
We'll have to come up with a better name for this, but yeah,
Wait,
let's get
I think
into
it's
it.
somewhere in there. Spencer and synopsis you can make into one word.
Yeah, you could. We'll figure it out. We'll put it into like a pun generator,
Yeah.
and you know those are a thing, right?
No.
I feel like you use them sometimes.
I've never heard of that.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it off podcast, but it's funny.
I just spilled water.
So basically, did you? Okay, go record your TikTok right now.
Seriously?
No, I'm just kidding. Do not do it while recording the podcast. I mean, I can pause the recording. We can record your TikTok real quick.
I got to.
Okay, we pause real quick, and we'll be right back after this commercial. All right, now that we're back from that slight commercial break, if you guys have no clue what we're talking about with TikTok, just wait for the banter episode. We talk about it for a good while about Christian's TikTok. But anyway, let me get into my spin synopsis, or whatever it is we're calling it. All right, so the episode kind of starts off right where we left it. Mando is going to Frog Lady's planet to meet up with her husband. Her ship is all jumbled to pieces. He's barely going. His landing gear is broken, so he tries to land on the planet, but he ends up like basically crashing into the water, and they have to pull him out with a crane. Then while he is like trying to assess the damages, he asks a Mon Calamari if he can fix up the ship, and he said he'll make it run, or he'll make it fly, basically. So Frog Lady is reunited with her husband, and he shows him, Mando, where he can go find people who know where the Mandalorians are on this specific planet. So Mando goes into this bar, and we see him buy Baby Yoda some food, which is very nice. And then we see that there are some pirates who are willing to take Mando and Baby Yoda to the Mandalorians. They're the ones who say they know where they are. So they get on a ship and they're sailing.
I thought they were just fishermen who were just pricks.
They might have been. Either way, they look like pirates. They may be pirates. They might be fishermen. I don't really remember. I don't think it's ever super like blatantly stated what they are. But either way, they're on a ship and they go out into the water. And on there they have a mama core, which is this big crazy sea creature they keep on the ship, but in water in a pit. Yeah. So
it's not in a pit. It just goes through it goes to where the fish are. How would there be a pit
No,
underwater?
that's it's part of the ship.
Oh, you're talking about. Oh, I thought you meant like the mama core was in a pit.
Well, she's on in the ship. There's like a secret. There's a compartment in the ship that houses the mama core. Yeah, it's part of the
I thought it was
ship.
a wild. I thought it was a wild animal. How would it?
Nah, they have a pit in this that's filled with water where the mama core is. Yeah,
No,
I've read up on it, man. I've
that doesn't
read
make
up.
any sense.
It
It's an
doesn't.
opening. It's an opening in the ship, and it's a wild fish coming to hunt. That makes more sense than anything.
That's what I thought. But every
Why
source
would
that
they?
I've read,
Why would a boat carry a gigantic fish in its hull? That doesn't make any sense.
you're right. It doesn't make any
I
sense.
don't normally interrupt your synopses, but this is worth interrupting. Like that is some
Yeah.
dumb. I don't know what it is. That there's no way there's a big fish in the bottom of a boat.
Listen, it doesn't make sense to me either, but from all the reports and all the videos that I've watched, that's how it is. And that's what I'm going with. I don't understand either. Either way, they're gonna the people on the boat are gonna show Mando the feeding of this thing.
But okay, the way I saw it though was like in Jurassic World where the Mosasaurus jumps out of the water. It looked like there was like and it like goes and gets the whale or something like that.
Mhm.
It looked like there was like force behind it, like it was swimming up. Like if it was in the ship, it would have just been like it would have just sort of popped out and be like chunk.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of with you here, man. Like I don't think it should make sense either because it would also make the ship sink if the ship was full of water.
Yes, exactly.
It would also make the ship sink, so that doesn't really make sense, but it's what I've found. And yeah,
I don't think your source is reliable.
they may not be. Either way, what matters is that they were feeding this mama core, and told Mando to get Baby Yoda closer so he could see the mama core being fed. But instead of feeding it, they they do feed it, but they kick Baby Yoda into the little hole, and the mama core swallows Baby Yoda's pod. Mando jumps in after him. But is not able to save him. And so instead we get 3 Mandalorians that show up and save Baby Yoda and Mando from the feeder people.
The night owls.
Yes, and these one of these Mandalorians being Bo-Katan Kryze, who we know from Clone Wars and Rebels. She then has a big conversation with Mando. She takes off her helmet, which Mando is very confused about. They all do. She kind of saves him, takes him back to the land or whatever, along with Baby Yoda, and they all sit and kind of have a drink together. He asks them about if he knows where the Jedi are, and they say that they will give him information in exchange for help on a mission getting weapons back off of an Imperial freighter. Once they get on this ship, however, they realize that Bo-Katan wants to actually take over the whole ship and not just the weapons. So they end up taking over the whole ship after fighting a buttload of stormtroopers and some Imperial officers who are under the order of Moff Gideon. Bo-Katan's also searching for the Darksaber. She knows Moff Gideon has it. She wielded it in Clone Wars and Rebels. And after that, she kind of tells Mando about this person that everyone may know named Ahsoka Tano, who is on a planet called Corvus, and that is where he can take Baby Yoda to be back with the Jedi, and then he leaves them. Probably gonna see her and her fellow Mandalorians again at some point, but those are the major key points of the episode. Yeah, you're right. I've never been interrupted like that in the middle of my synopsis, but it was interesting because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But overall, very interesting episode because they pack a lot into 35 minutes.
Yeah.
The first half is sort of devoted to like sort of introducing parts of the planet and like closing the loop with the frog lady and who I call Frog Lad.
Frog Lad.
Her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then they introduce the night owls, introduce the ship, sort of the pirates, the piracy that they're about to do.
Yeah.
And then the last half of the episode is just one big action climax.
Yes, sir. So are they called the Night Owls? Do they say that in the episode and I missed it, or is that something from Rebels?
It's something from Rebels and or Clone Wars that I forgot, but I listened to in a podcast and I was like,
Okay,
yeah, that
because
makes
I
sense.
have not seen Rebels and I've not heard Night Owls, but I assume I think it's from Rebels because I think Bo-Katan formed that after the
After
Purge.
Death Watch, was
Maybe not even
went off
then,
into
but
hiding.
after the Purge,
Yeah.
because it may not have even been during the Siege of Mandalore that she formed them, because it might have been during the Purge, because most Mandalorians were killed during the Purge, and so what's left of them is now the Night Owls. So it's probably during Rebels that is stated, because the Purge
Yeah.
happens after Clone Wars. So either way, that's what they're called. So very cool. I do have a quick question. How many of these stormtroopers do you think are part of the 501st, or do you think they just got a crap ton of extras?
Oh, I
There are
don't
so
know.
many stormtroopers in this episode, and I guarantee that a lot of them are the 501st.
I bet they reused a bunch of them.
I bet so too. Because
You don't they're not all in the same shot.
True. I don't know. With this, they didn't use as many as the first season, so they might not have been, them, but it could easily have been. All right, so Christian, before this episode, we kind of talked about our first reactions, but we also try to keep the beginning a little bit spoiler free, even though I don't really understand why, because why would you listen to this if you haven't seen the episode yet? But now let's kind of talk about how we like the episode, where now we can finally talk about spoilers. How about that?
Yeah, so Bo-Katan appears in this episode, played by Katie Sackhoff, her voice actress in Clone Wars and Rebels, and then later on, Ahsoka Tano is mentioned. So we're getting to the point of this show where we're getting into the the canon sort of tie-ins. We've already had a taste of Cobb Vanth and Boba Fett, but like in terms of really affecting the plot, we're sort of seeing the intertwining of like multimedia Star Wars characters, basically. Seeing and it's not just like a book character being in an episode, but like a character like Bo-Katan and eventually Ahsoka Tano, animated characters that are directly influencing our character's journey in a huge way, challenging Mando's beliefs. So what do you like? Go a little in depth on your reaction to seeing her, and just knowing that this is where we're headed.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I love Bo-Katan. I thought she is great, especially in like the last two seasons of Clone Wars. Going into her like being in Death Watch, but then seeing her turn kind of good enough to like lead the siege of Mandalore, and but then everything she's been through since then, all of her people were killed by the Empire basically, and she's had to go into hiding. And so seeing her show up again is just huge because this means that this can go a lot of ways. But another big point is that she doesn't follow the same belief system as Din. Uh, they follow different belief systems.
Side
So
note, I don't think they named Din Djarin very well. Like, it's like later on, you're gonna assume the characters are gonna be like naming him affectionately, like referring to him affectionately, and Din just doesn't feel like the. Anyway, go on.
they might call him Jaren, who knows? But that too sounds awful.
Double D doesn't sound right.
Oh, it does start with a D. I've read Jaren start with a D and not a J. Anyway, but yeah, so they also follow a separate belief system. So like Christian, like you said, like she's challenging what Mando believes, and I didn't even think about it until she showed up and took off her helmet. And I was like, wait, Mandalorians do take off their helmets like a lot.
Yeah.
And like, why is it that he is like this? And she mentions that he is part of the Watch, which is that supposed to be Death Watch, because they take off their helmets too. But we also see that in the flashbacks from season 1 that Death Watch is who saved Mando from his town when it was being invaded by the Separatists.
Yeah, so I'll connect all those dots for you.
Do it right now.
So obviously, like Death Watch has always been the more strict, more violent sort of sect within Mandalore. But then once the purge happens, they double down on that, and that's when the rule of keeping their helmets on starts, because it's I think like Bo-Katan says some of this within the bar scene, I think, and some of it on the boat, where like they wanted to keep their culture strong by separating it and by cutting off all the ties to Mandalore. And so like the strict rule of the helmet being taken off, that's like post purge.
So like after all the Mandalorians were killed and after Pre-Vizsla and all that stuff.
Yeah. And so
okay.
and the fact that it's like, if you're part of that Death Watch cult, let's call it that, that believes in a certain way of preserving Mandalorian culture and having certain views on violence, like it's sort of like it's a rule of like code of honor or whatever, but it's also like it's kind of a code to like know that if they ever see someone wearing a suit, a Mandalorian suit, and they take off their helmet, that means they're not about this, they're not with us. That's not our
and
way
so
of
I
life.
guess they've also gone away from just wearing all blue.
Yeah, well, I think that's because, like, I don't know, they probably just had limited resources, and like they were just take any Beskar they had.
This leads into my next question. Were they still, they wouldn't have been practicing all of this when Mando was rescued, because he was rescued while the Separatists were still in charge. So the purge had not happened yet.
Yeah, well, see, I heard this theory that, you know, it's possible that this will continue to be like recontextualized, but it's possible that the Death Watch were actually the attackers in that scene, possibly. Like I feel like Din's memory could have easily been skewed by the teachings of the Death Watch, because I don't think Din was necessarily, as a 9-year-old kid, not really, or 6-year-old, I think, he probably wasn't keeping track of who was attacking who and what the political beliefs are, you know, like he's a kid. He just knows that there's gunfire and his parents are sacrificing themselves to protect him. And the next thing he knows, he's rescued. Like we don't fully know like the entire context, because that memory is from the view of a child.
Yeah, and this was still this is still before, this would technically have been before Death Watch took over Mandalore, probably. Because the Separatists still being a thing at this point. Darth Maul probably had not come to Death Watch yet, so they were still, the Death Watch were still in hiding when they found Din. Which, but then
even if the death, like it could have been the Death Watch rescued them, but like if it's not Mandalore, then they're not necessarily there to protect as their duty. They probably had an ulterior motive to be on that planet, because it's not Mandalore. So they're probably only in that battle for like resources or not political reasons. Only political motivations they have is on Mandalore. So it's probably just, you know, there's a business reason that they wanted to be meddling in that planet's affairs.
Yeah, and then Din would have been taken to whatever planet Death Watch was hiding out on at the time before they tried to retake over Mandalore. And then that's when they took over Mandalore for a very short period of time, until the Resistance, led by Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano, retook Mandalore for the good guys. Until then, it was taken over again by the Empire, and, you know, everyone died. Yeah, the Mandalorian arc is one of my absolute favorite parts of Star Wars. I love the Mandalorians, and I love the history of the Mandalorians and everything about it. It's just so awesome.
My memory is not very good about it, because I've seen different parts of it when I was relatively younger. Some of it was like I watched like a year and a half ago. Some of it I watched this year with season 7, and then like, I mean, you haven't seen Rebels yet, but there's a lot of Mandalorian stuff on Rebels that I don't fully remember because I saw it once. So my memory is splotchy. But anyway, in terms of The Mandalorian, this show, we go into all this examination of what could have happened, because this is what we're confronted with in this episode, that Mandalorian Din was he grew up in a sheltered culture that did not fully like promote objective views of Mandalorian history, and that deliberately told him certain things and left out a lot of things as well.
Yeah.
And so as he's like coming into conflict with Bo-Katan and her assistants, one was named Axe Woves and the other one was something Cascos.
It was Costco Reeves or something like that.
Casco Reeves and Axe Woves. By
Yeah.
the way, Axe Woves was named by George Lucas. He was on set and he's like, and like Favreau was like, hey, what's a good Star Wars name? And that's what he gave him.
Really? Well, so the other one is played by Sasha Banks, who was the lady in the cloak that we saw in the commercials. Everybody was like,
Yeah.
is that Ahsoka? No, it's a Mandalorian.
Yeah. I doubt she cares whether like what name we refer to her as, but
she,
and her actress name is Mercedes Varnado, because if she goes by Sasha Banks, she has to pay WWE per credit.
Oh yeah, because her real name is not Sasha Banks.
Yeah, her real name is Mercedes Varnado. So
yeah,
that's what she's credited as, because who would want to pay Vince McMahon money for being in Star Wars? That's kind of counterintuitive. You go to Star Wars to make money.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, this is a very interesting episode because some of the things that people whether you're like a nerdy Star Wars fan or a casual fan with season 1 was like why can't he take off his helmet, and haven't other Mandalorians done this? Like trying to figure out like what the actual rules are, and the fact that we're finally processing that through the story. It's no longer something that's not addressed. It's finally being addressed that he's coming into conflict with people who don't do it. So what do you think about that?
That was that's ultimately one of the reasons I absolutely love this episode, is because it opens up so many new, like, it just, all the questions that we've had about like how this fits into the rest of like Mandalorian history and why it's so much different than other Mandalorians. Like, they're all answered in this episode, or new, it's explained why things are the way they are and where he falls in the history of Mandalore, and so many questions and connections to the greater Star Wars universe that are they're so cool. And like I said, I absolutely love anything that has to do with Mandalorian history. I love it in Clone Wars, and I love it the Mandalorians in comics. I need to watch more of it in Rebels, and so anything like that is just so intriguing to me.
And I love the part where he says this is the only way. And just even like the original phrase of "this is the way," like you and I come from a Baptist upbringing, I guess. So like, I don't know. It's very interesting to see like the Star Wars has always had different parallels with like a lot of different religions, and that's just one example of like, to be so hard-nosed and stringent with one's beliefs can really harm your interactions with others, and like can really, if you release those and like sort of challenge your own beliefs, then you can be more of a graceful and stronger person. I feel like that's my personal belief. And so I think it's really interesting that we're sort of diving into that within the show. And that, I don't know, like we're every episode this season, or more so the second and third episode, we're starting to like see Din's shortcomings, and like he doesn't look like a terrible person, but we're starting to like more clearly see his flaws, and like not just like, because like obviously the first season is like, oh well, he's a bounty hunter, so like these are shady things, but he's doing it because he kind of has to. But with this, it's like he's trying to be good, but he's still holding on to some like bad habits, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see him sort of learn from other people.
Yeah, it's really cool to see like the change in tone from the first season. The first season's like, look how cool this guy is. He can't do anything wrong. Where it's like very different Like you
Yeah,
said, it's
well,
very much like, hey, you're kind of wrong, buddy.
yeah, I feel like there was a bit of that in season 1, but you're right. Um there's sort of an expectation that he's going to be that.
Hmm.
Um and I feel like the complexity is ever more clear. I think it was there in the season 1, but um definitely you're like, this is the any sort of second edition of anything, like Empire Strikes Back is the second in a trilogy. This is the second season. It's going to be the trials and tribulations. It's where he's confronting all these new things and
Yeah, and you're used to
how to be
him
better.
being in charge. And like we talked about with last episode, he was very much not in charge with the frog lady. Like he had no clue what he was doing.
He was in charge, but not doing well at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's used to being able to just be in charge and be good at it, but now it's like he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's not just a new cool thing for us to view, but a new challenge for him to face that he's like going through, and he's like, oh well, now I don't know how to face these situations because I've never had to do them before. And
Yeah.
that's really cool to see. I also I absolutely love that they got Katie Sackhoff to play Bo-Katan. That makes me really happy as a Clone Wars fan.
Yeah. And I feel like the more I watch it, the more I get used to like the wig. If it is a wig, I'm pretty sure it's a wig.
It looks like a wig.
And the costume, and like sort of just like getting used to like the live action version, because
Yeah, because her facial structure is not entirely the same. Like she's got a little bit rounder face than she did in the Clone Wars.
It's not a one-to-one, but that's the thing. Animation always like they pick 2 or 3 features and like zero in on those.
Yeah. It still definitely looks like her because the cartoon version was modeled off of Katie Sackhoff. But
yeah,
it's not perfect. And it took me a second to get used to it because I was like, wait, that's her? And I was like, oh wait, yeah, that's her. But afterwards, like I loved it. She sounds the exact same. They use the same voice modulation sound in her helmet to make her sound the same, which is just like, that sounds like a stupid thing to say, but she sounds the same through her helmet, which is a thing you can easily change. You can make it deeper. You can make it, you can make it higher pitched or whatever, add more distortion. But no, it's very similar. I liked it a lot.
Another thing we can go into is Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, most of my notes, even if they don't have to do with music, sort of tie into music. And so when I was thinking about how we haven't heard his Force theme, like the theme that was in season 1.
Oh, okay. I was about to say
sort of.
We haven't heard. I thought you said we
his
haven't
version.
all.
It's his version of the Force theme. It's more mysterious and more from like Din's perspective of like, what is this creature?
Yeah.
So like he hasn't, aside from sensing the crate, he hasn't really used the Force. And so we're seeing, I don't know, what do you think about his role in this season so far of just sort of reacting to what's going on? And then episode 2 is where he sort of disrupts things.
Yeah.
And then this episode, he's just kind of wants to be a kid.
I think it's really cool.
He's not causing mischief, but he's just like, are you going to pay attention to me? Like, what do you think of anything like that?
I think it's really cool because I think as viewers, not really maybe us as, film wannabe film critics, but people, casual fans, they've kind of gotten to the point where they're used to being able to be like, hey, we want this, and then the writers do it. Fan service has skyrocketed in the last little bit when it comes to like these big multi-million-dollar corporations, and they could have easily just gone, oh, you guys want more really cute Baby Yoda and Baby Yoda doing all these crazy things? Well, guess what? We're going to give you season 2. And, they could have easily just made him the main star of season 2. But they didn't. They treated him like any other character and treated him like, yeah, he'll get his part. But for now, he's going to do this. And they even made the point to not just give you cute Baby Yoda. They're like, here's character development. He's going to do some questionable things. Like, he's not just going to be the cute Baby Yoda that and, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's great because they're using him differently, and it shows that they're not just in it for the money, and they want to make a compelling story, and I think that it's working. And I really like the way he's used as like not really like a side piece of the puzzle at this point, but like a spectator. And now we're, instead of seeing things through the eyes of the Mandalorian like we were last season, we're almost seeing things through the lens of Baby Yoda as like just like an observer in this season.
There's a lot of, I think I mentioned last week where like they kind of use him similar to BB-8, where it's like a good editing trick is just to cut to him
Yeah.
looking at Mando.
Mm-hmm.
And this one we got that as well. We sort of, the Frog Lad and Frog Lady reunite, and then immediately Baby Yoda goes from looking at them to like looking up at Mando. And so, and Mando's reaction is, "Oh, you're hungry. I know. I'll get you some food." Which
Yeah.
I think he's, you know, he's doing what he's supposed to be. He's actually trying to feed his baby.
Yeah, good job.
But also he's kind of wrong, because I think Baby Yoda was looking at them more as family, as like something that Mando's not yet, because he's seeing this affection being displayed that he's never really had before.
Yeah.
The most affection Mando has given Baby Yoda is like handing him a toy, you know, and just like I think Mando's love language is violence, not towards Baby Yoda, but for him.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the main way, that's the main avenue that he cares for him, and Baby Yoda knows that. He picks up, he knows what violence is.
Yeah.
And so seeing Frog Lad and Frog Lady touch hands, and then hug and like creak for each other was, I feel like I connect most from Baby Yoda perceiving them than just seeing them, I guess. Like I feel like a lot of people react to Frog Lady as like I mean, rightfully so, they're like really in love with these characters.
Yeah.
And I like them. I feel like a more strong reaction to Baby Yoda seeing that as something that could be happening for him, but it's not. So yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts of the episode, is that Baby Yoda's just with his eyes, just the puppet's eyes, he's sort of communicating to Mando like what his progression should be. This sort of more open and more affectionate way of caring for him.
Mm-hmm. What I find is really cool about this episode is that later on, the action sequence is awesome. The action's great. It's cool to see Mando fighting alongside other Mandalorians. And because, like we hear John Leguizamo's character say, maybe, no way, it wasn't him. Who was it that said, if you know, oh yeah, it was when Cobb Vanth said, if you know Mandalorians, you know they're good at killing. And we kind of got to see that in this episode, because these 4 Mandalorians team up and they kick some booty. So it's really fun to see, but ultimately doesn't really make a difference. Like the action doesn't really drive the plot a whole lot. You know, so
yeah, it does. I mean, the plot had already kicked off, but it has its own very important part of the story.
It does, yeah. It's just not. It's not Mando fighting off Moff Gideon at the end of season 1 level,
or being trapped in an iceberg full of spiders.
Yeah. It's more of a, hey, let's go do this for your sake, so then you can give me what I need to continue on my way, which was really a really cool way to do it.
It's another one of those, like, this deal's getting worse all the time. Like, he's trying to do a simple thing, and then it goes out of hand a little bit. But yeah. Do we have anything more on Baby Yoda?
I don't think so.
We'll get to the end part of the episode.
I do.
It shines a little bit more.
I do have that he is left with Frog Lady and Frog Lad while Mando goes on his adventure, and he witnesses the miracle of birth, as the article that I said, or that I read, states it. He gets to play with the sibling of one of his dinners.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's when he sort of, it clicks for him that it's like, oh, this I ate that, but now it's it's a little frog now. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, any of those shots where he's sort of, this one more so because he's not hungry, but like him perceiving the eggs and sort of the shot through the glass
Mm-hmm.
are always fun to look at.
I really liked this scene. It's weird because it was so short, but I really just liked the scene of him playing with the little baby frog and him just like looking at it and like, hey, you're a baby too. Like, what's going on, my guy?
Yeah,
I could almost, if this was like a 21st century, he would like reach out and dap him up a little bit. He's like, what's going on, my guy? It's really cool. And that was such an awesome scene to see Baby Yoda kind of come around to like, oh, I was eating them, but they're actually things just like me. How would I feel if somebody was eating me? Like, not good. Um, but yeah, that's the last of my notes. Unless you have any,
Yeah.
I do have a quick Easter egg that I thought was cool. And that is that the crane at the beginning of the episode was a scrapped AT-AT.
Was it?
It was the legs of an AT-AT, and then they built a
Yeah.
crane on top of it.
It looks sort of like it. It reminded me of some concepts they did for Solo: A Star Wars Story,
Mm-hmm.
for Corellia, because Corellia has that industrialized sort of imperial landscape to it, and so it
Yeah.
has cranes in the background.
Mhm.
And they considered doing a AT-AT crane, but yeah, but also it's not true. It's a myth, but like people thought that AT-ATs were modeled off of cranes from San Francisco, where the Lucasfilm office is.
Oh yeah.
It's not true, but it's a fun connection that like
Yeah. Well,
cranes and AT-ATs, and it's all sort of this weird sort of design family tree, I guess.
yeah, but that was an AT-AT, and that's really the only, other than the connections that we've already stated, the numerous connections in this episode. That's pretty much all of the Easter eggs. You got the Mon Calamari
And the
inhabiting this
Quarren.
planet, and the Quarren, who we see are in the middle of a civil war in the middle of in Clone Wars. But then they learn to.
That's interesting. The fact that they're all in the same place, because that's their species. They benefit from that environment. Like, I
Mhm.
wonder if there's like infighting.
Yeah, because in
between
Clone Wars
them.
we see a big civil war between them, um,
Yeah.
and but they end up making peace, I think, at the end of the thing, and so they're like not fighting as much. But if you guys know Mon Calamari, the most famous one being Admiral Akbar, and I don't have we seen the other species?
Admiral. Oh, for the Quarren.
Yeah, the Corrin. Have we seen any
They were
like
they were
famous ones?
background. No, there's no famous ones.
Okay, because I know we've
they
seen
played.
them.
Let me talk, Spencer.
It's all right.
They played background roles in the original trilogy, like I think at Jabba's palace.
Mhm.
And there was like a main one in Clone Wars, part of that arc.
Yeah.
Obviously, and then in Rebels, there might have been a Quarren that was like important for like a few episodes.
Okay.
But no, they're generally, yeah, the Mon Calamari get more screen time because they're more, I
Fishy
guess,
like.
they're more cute, I guess, in relative terms, whereas Quarren sort of make up the background villainous characters.
Yeah, I think I read at one point there's a Corrin Jedi or something, or maybe it's a Mon Calamari Jedi, but one of those species there is a Jedi. Um, I don't remember exactly, but yeah. Anyway, that was really cool. Those are cool species that I really like, always enjoy, especially with done in live action. They're done really well. Like the character
Yeah.
designs and the character models in this episode are outstanding, and I love
I
them.
think there was a Quarren in episode 1 of season 1, right?
Yeah, I think. I don't
We'll
know.
check back on that.
I know they're in the prequels as well. We're getting some really cool species like on screen that we've never had on screen before. Like we got the Weequay. We're getting Quarren. We're getting Mon Calamari. More of them than we've seen before. Yeah, we're getting some really cool.
The
Yeah,
Weequay was in Return of the Jedi as well.
that's right.
I
He
think
was.
and they're still doing that with practical makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, some of them, I'll have to double check on the Quarren as well, but like some of them, they opted out of doing practical makeup and did CGI, or I'm remembering wrong, and they were born in animation, and then they're translating the animation into CGI.
Yeah. Was now what's his name? The pirate guy from Clone Wars. He's not a weak way, is he?
He's a weak way.
He is? Okay, I thought so. Hanzo, right? Hondo. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he is a weak way. And his whole people is. Okay, cool. I thought so.
Dude.
It's just hard to see from animation to present.
Dude, remember episode 1 of this season, Anakin's pod racer was showing up, and I, audibly yelled at the notion that that's in this show.
Yeah.
I swear I will yell 5 times as loud if a Nautilin shows up in this show.
Is it bad that I don't know what that is?
Yes, it's very bad. It's Kit Fisto species.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. I want one so bad.
I don't care if it's like a trashy bounty hunter or a barkeep or a farmer, just anyone, as long as they have this feeling about them where it's like, okay, what's your story? Please tell me.
Yeah, because I don't know. Okay, I don't think I've said this on the podcast, but Kit Fisto's my favorite Jedi. And so like
I thought it was Plo Koon. Okay.
No. My roommate likes Plo Koon. I like Kit Fisto.
Nah. I've always said that Kit Fisto was my favorite background Jedi. And then you always said Plo Koon. I feel like you're piggybacking on my opinion.
No, I'm fairly certain I've always said Kit Fisto.
You've always said Plo Koon because of his connection with Ahsoka and because of his breathing apparatus.
I think I've said that it was a debate between the two, but I really like Kit Fisto because he invented underwater lightsabers. I don't know. Either way, I really like Kit Fisto, and I would really love if one showed up.
Anyway, he's one of those species that's like not very common. They don't use them for background characters at all.
Yeah.
And so I would hope that it would, I mean, I guess I'll settle for a background character, but I would want that a Nautilin to be like a mysterious new character.
Yeah. That'd be
cool. Speaking of like weird things that we want to see in the show, if you listen to our first season of Mornings with the Mandalorian, you'd know that I am a huge fan of Ludwig Göransson and want him to appear in the show as a cantina musician. I want him to play a banjo. I don't care if he's in alien makeup or just as himself because he already looks pretty weird. Speaking of that though, there's some music in this episode that I think is part of the score, but it could have been sort of the music from the bar. Mm-hmm. But yeah, are anything just coming to your mind? Anything else coming to your mind that like you'd want to see? Like little things.
Little things, not really. I mean, I kind of want to see someone just absolutely kick Mando's butt. I want him.
I mean, we get a pretty healthy dose of that every episode.
We do, but we've not had anything that ever makes him question whether he should go in guns blazing every time. Because every time he's like, yeah, if I ever find myself in this situation again, I'm just gonna fight my way out of it. Like, I want him to get kicked so hard one time that he's like, maybe I should like rethink the way I go into situations.
Yeah,
it might be better for his character.
Yeah. So we've done a little thing of not speculation, but what we want to see. Now we can go full force. So let's just talk about Ahsoka and what we think, how we think she'll be handled, and what we think is 2 episodes from now, what she'll play into the story. And I don't know, we've crossed a certain threshold in this episode where I think we know, we feel like there's a hint of the finale. Not directly, but like,
yeah,
I feel like we've gone through the introductory phase of the show, and we're setting off on something new, and I feel like, I don't know, there's enough there to like where we think we know where this could be heading possibly. So do you want to start us off with what you think of
Ahsoka
I will say
in the show? That while Kit Fisto is my favorite background Jedi. My favorite Jedi is Ahsoka. She is my favorite Jedi ever. Just such a good character.
To be fair though,
She's not really a Jedi by the end of it.
Star Wars Rebels has entered the chat. You know,
She's not technically a Jedi, but yeah, I get it. Okay. My favorite former Jedi. There you go. You want that? Okay, she never actually was a Jedi. She was a Padawan. Whatever.
Favorite
I don't
Force-sensitive person with a lightsaber who
Yes.
exemplifies what a Jedi ideally
should be, and not what the council says you should be. That's what she's my favorite of. Okay, is that good for you? Yes, I love Ahsoka Tano. Was so excited when Rosario Dawson got cast to play her because I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, it's gonna be great. I'm really glad that Dave Filoni is the writer and like is writing parts of Ahsoka being in this because he knows her better than anyone. He literally created her. I'm so excited to see her, and what I think is going to happen is she's going to be with Rex. Probably, if Rex is in this show, he'll be with her, and that's how we get introduced to Rex. And I'm really excited to see how she reacts to Baby Yoda, because the only one of that species that she's ever seen was Yoda, and she kind of assumed he was the only one because even by the time she was a Padawan, Yaddle was off the council and was doing who knows what, and so she would have never met Yaddle, so she only knows of one. And so I'm really intrigued to see how she like reacts to that, and I honestly don't know what she's gonna do with it with Baby Yoda. Like, she definitely has like the motherly instinct that she's probably gonna be like, I'll raise it. Because whenever she sees like young creatures in Clone Wars and in Rebels, mostly in Clone Wars though, she's like, I will protect you, kind of thing.
That's just being a good person. She doesn't have to be a
but
mom,
she's
though.
kind of wanted to. She's always been the person to kind of protect the little guy, So I think if she were to take Baby Yoda, she would do good with it or with him.
But that's not her ultimate. Like, she's not a babysitter.
Yeah, what do you think is gonna happen?
Well, I don't know. I don't see her as a mom because I don't think she's straight. But
that's not what I meant. As like that's the only thing I could think of that would match anyhow I was thinking.
Gotcha. I don't know. I think I don't know the visions that I'm seeing so far of this episode, which are probably totally incorrect, but I'm just picturing, it's a forest planet. She's probably got this cool little hideout,
like Yoda.
Or no, not like Yoda. More like you went to Oriella, right, on your trip to Guyana?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see any of those there's one guy that has like a tree house sort of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm picturing that where she's just sort of living peacefully, but I think there might be some sorrow to her because like this is not only is this like the second chapter in a or like thing. It's like I don't think it's gonna be easy for Mando to reach to her.
Also, we've never seen
sort of
her
like Luke in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, we also are gonna see her after her master has died.
Yeah, so
because she's also having to deal with the fact that Anakin is now dead.
Yeah, so I think that I don't know, like I don't think she's gonna be quite as hopeless as Luke, but I don't know. I'm picturing like quite a few empty bottles on her living room floor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
maybe not literally, but metaphorically.
Yeah.
Or maybe literally.
Or literally. I think she's definitely gonna make it hard for Mando, whether or not she's at peace or not. Like she's going to resist Mando because it's not going to be easy. Like otherwise, what's the story? I don't know. In terms of the very end of the show, I will point this out, or not point it out, but express my desire for it. I don't know if we'll get it this season, but I think we're heading towards the liberation of Mandalore.
Yeah, I assume so. And I feel like Ahsoka would probably play a role in that.
Yeah, especially we have precedent for the Mando going back, regathering his allies, and assembling them to accomplish the goal, you know?
Yeah.
And if he moves on from Ahsoka, now it's possible that she's in, like, once she comes in at episode 5, she's the rest of the way. That's possible.
Yeah.
But it could be like he has to go back, or she comes back or whatever, and battles for Mandalore, or I don't know, something else happens next season.
Yeah. Another thing
But I think that's definitely the direction of this show, because I don't know. Keep in mind, this show is called The Mandalorian, not Din Djarin, and I feel like it's fitting because ultimately it's just it's about the idea of Mandalorians. It's not even gendered. It's not like there's not a word for a male or a female Mandalorian. It's just you could have called it Mandalorian with no the. Like, so I feel like the ultimate end game of this show is bringing this culture like back to the, I don't know what you call it, back to its heyday, I guess. Like, liberating it and letting it be its own thing, and like freeing itself from any sort of evil force trying to control it.
Yeah, and another thing that you were talking about, like the Ahsoka's probably living in like that sorrow or whatever, is that she helped to free Mandalore, and then like right after that, the Empire was like psych and then took it back over. And so basically that whole thing that she went through was, for naught at that point. And so many of the people that she fought alongside are now dead by the Empire. And she could easily feel guilty about not being there when the Empire came. Feel like she may have been able to do something about it. But yeah, I'm very excited to see her condition when
or
we
maybe she's caring for a dying and or losing his mind Captain Rex.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Because we discussed this, I think, off air. But the fact that Rex is like on his last leg at this point, because clones rapidly de-age, or they rapidly age once they get to a certain point. And so he would almost probably look like 99 at this point, maybe.
I don't think he'd be like losing his limbs would be deforming, but he would be very old, I guess, and not very mobile, I would assume.
Yeah.
Well, but then again, this is 6 years after Return of the Jedi, and he was still fighting.
Yeah, that's right. So we know what he looked like at that point. And so just age him.
But he could have sustained an injury. I don't know. It just feels like something interesting that, like, plot wise for them to include, for him to maybe going through something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just
I like that.
Here.
Weren't there other clones, 2 other guys that were with Rex and Rebels?
Yeah, Wolf and I don't remember the other guy.
I knew it was Wolf, but I always forgot the other one.
Another thing relating to the Clone Wars is that, I don't know, some people think that when Bo-Katan looks at Baby Yoda, like, some people read that as her recognizing that species, and that, like, it could have easily, like, she could have easily known Yoda because being in the Clone Wars. That's not how I interpreted it at all. Like, I saw it as,
see how she
like,
could know Yoda.
Yeah, like, she could have, but, like, as far as we know, she didn't, because it was never showed in an episode. Like, just because it was possible doesn't mean that, like, that's true. And also, when she looks at Baby Yoda, she is talking about the Watch and how they seek to gather foundlings to, like, to carry on the beliefs of the Watch, I guess. And she says that as she looks at Baby Yoda, and so she's like, "Oh, you kidnapped this kid, or just took a random kid who's homeless and orphaned or whatever, and you're trying to continue the Death Watch way." Like, that's, which slightly in a way he's doing that, even though he's eventually going to give him to the Jedi.
I see that.
But, like, that's how I interpreted her as doing it. It's like, oh, she's talking about how they gather foundlings, and then she looks at him like, that's probably what you're doing.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I'm very intrigued just to see Ahsoka and just everything about her. I mean, you said I really like the idea of her being in like this little hut or whatever, like in the middle of the woods or something, like on this weird planet, which we've never seen Corvus before. So that's a new planet. So they have like free reign over
Yeah.
creating this new planet, which is cool. And then we get to see her and whoever's with her, probably Rex, maybe Wolf as well, if he's not dead. And then we get to see her interact with Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian. She probably has a soft spot in her heart for Mandalorians. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, I'm very excited, and that's the main thing that I'm really looking for in the coming episodes. Also, just to see Cara Dune and wow, I really
Grief.
can't. Yeah, Grief.
Karga.
Yeah, and see them come back and work with Mandalorian, which we think is gonna be next episode. Probably. On IMDb, it says that he gets back with old friends. So, and it has a picture of Cara Dune on it. So we're assuming that it's Cara Dune and Grief Karga. So yeah, that's all I got for this episode. Do you
Oh.
want to do a little bit of music?
All right, let's talk about music. My buddy, the big LG is what I call him, Ludwig Göransson. He composed the music for the show, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here. And so today I did this thing. I used a method of, it's not a method, it's just using iOS 11 or whatever number we're on. But so you know how the mini player thing that's added to the iPhone where you can have something like Disney Plus or Google Chrome play a video and then use another app while doing that. Spence?
Oh yeah, I do know that. I thought this was a rhetorical question for the listeners.
They're not going to answer me. You are. So it plays in the corner while you do whatever else you're doing. So I had today's episode or chapter 11 in the corner of my phone, and then I had my music app on the main screen. And so what I did was I played it and I listened to the music and I was like, does this sound like something I've heard? And so I looked up Ludwig Göransson's profile, saw all the other episode scores he's done, which are only for season 1 because they haven't released season 2. I think they're doing a collection like next week. That's what I heard. Don't confirm it. I haven't confirmed that yet. But so yeah, I focused on the music for this episode. I didn't really pay attention to what I was seeing. And I heard in the atmosphere entry scene of this episode where they're crashing onto Trask, he reused music from chapter 6, which was used for the Razor Crest. So I don't know if it's meant to be like something they use often for the Razor Crest, but they're using it again here. And you know, in chapter 6 where they're using the hyperspace like automatic, like Richard Ayoade's robot character, Zero.
Yeah.
He's using like the computer algorithms to use hyperspace and then land on the Republic gunship.
Yeah.
So like that, there was this sort of just electronic sort of percussion-y sort of, I'm not a music person, but I know what some of this means. It's just like, so that's just one thing that popped up in that episode, popped up again in this episode as the Razor Crest was plummeting to its almost death. Except they added some like strings, like there's like this, because it looks like it's gonna crash. So add a little suspense to it, and I think they also like made it less electronic, and they used like actual strings to do it. Okay, moving on. We gotta fit this in really quick. Frog Lad, Frog Lady, when they reunite, this is really interesting. So they reused the latter part of the main Mando theme, and you know, instead of horns, they did strings. So Mando theme, it goes, so that part, the part that I emphasized, they used that, and for the part where the reunion of the frogs, it goes. And then there's a counter melody. I forget how it exactly goes, but it's like I don't know. So like, you know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Do you remember this?
Yes, okay. I remember this.
So yeah, it's stretching one part of the Mando theme, and it's putting onto this husband and wife as they're reuniting. They're gonna have kids. What does this mean, Spencer? What does this mean?
I don't know, Christian. What does this mean?
Well, so the Mando theme, it encapsulates a lot of different parts of the personality of Din. So, he's mysterious, he's violent, but he's got this heart and desire to protect and be honorable. So I think this part sort of emphasizes that part of it. And the scene also includes Mando looking at them. He sees this happen. Baby Yoda sees this happen. And so as a viewer, we're comparing the frog couple to Mando as a single father and his kid, Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing his theme used to other characters. And so they're portraying this side of him, but it's dialed up,
Yeah.
And so it's a more intense part of this little part of him, and the strings make it beautiful and soft. And it's like this sort of the domestic love that he's sort of coming into, but he's not fully expressing. This actually happened in a different way in Sanctuary Chapter 4, also directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. It happened in the opening of that episode where instead of like violins, they used guitar, and the guitar was in place of the horns of the Mandalorian, and it was da 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 instead of da 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 da, and it's a similar concept. It was showing this domestic planet, the Krill farm, where these people are living peacefully. And it was such a contrast to the first 3 episodes where he was just shooting people and getting trucked by Jawas. And so, I don't know. That's, if you wanted more analysis on Chapter 4, that's what that is. And it's a similar thing. Let me look at more of my notes. Yeah, so in Chapter 4, it was evoking Mando's journey into seeing other environments and like seeing contrasting lives. But in this episode, it's more action based. Like he's seeing people do things that he is sort of doing but not fully doing. So it's more of his progression, but it's more direct and more personal for him at this point. So that's interesting. I got some little notes. I talked about the inn or the bar where they had the atmospheric music.
Yeah.
They used the Mando theme in almost every episode. And they used it as he goes to the fishing barge because he's like, oh, this is the next part of this episode. We're gonna find out about the Mandalorians. Okay, the night owls. I really like this part. So they have this theme in this episode. It's repeated a lot of times. I used to have it in my head, but now I lost it. But anyway, go watch the episode. It's there a lot. So it's more like electronic, sort of showing Ludwig's hip hop background. And there's like electric guitar. It's not like they haven't used this theme in any other part of the show. It's similar to the flashbacks from episode or from season 1, but it's not fully the same.
Mm-hmm. I like how in the midst of you talking about music, you have to like shed your jacket because you're sweating too much. You're like so excited about the music. Too bad the listeners won't get to see that.
Yeah. Okay. And then when they take off their helmets, there's less noise. It's just like they focus on the bass of the theme, and they have some strings in the background. I wish I could do it off the top of my head, but I forget how it goes. And then after that scene, it transitions into the sunset shot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Of the explosion of the fishing ship.
Yeah.
And they reuse the normal Mando theme there. And then the part where Mando is like, these were not the terms. Like he was like arguing against Bo in the cargo hole, because
Mhm.
she changes the deal. This motif comes in from season 1. It was used in a bunch of different places. It was used in chapter 1, 3, and 8, and they all had to do with Mandalorians in some way. They were used for his, like, when he goes into the armory to get Beskar, like the first like sort of brick of Beskar that he gets, I think. And when he decides that he wants to rescue Baby Yoda, it goes, just to remember, just to remind you what it sounds like. It's like, it's so hard. Once you get one theme in your head, you can't get the other themes in your
Yeah,
head.
I know about that. I have that happen to me all the time with different like Star Wars songs. I sometimes won't be able to remember the Imperial March when I'm trying to. You saw it the other week when I kept trying to play the Mandalorian theme song on my guitar, and then I tried to play Luke's Force theme, and half the time I kept playing it at the same tempo as the Mandalorian theme song, and yeah, I just couldn't get it.
Okay, so it goes, dun, 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 and sometimes it's very subtle like that. But then in moments where the Mandalorians, like from the covert, they rise out of the tunnels and they rescue
Yeah.
Mandalorian in chapter 3, it's blaring. It's like dun, 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 dun. It's a little digital. That's what I added, that sort of flourish there.
I like it.
And then it was used in the Night of a Thousand Tears, or not even. No, that was never a flashback, was it?
I don't think so.
There's a flashback in chapter 8. Mando mentions Night of a Thousand Tears, but then the flashback that he describes or shows is when he gets rescued. And they use it again when he's rescued by Mandalorians. Oh, but also in chapter 3, the reason why it was connected with the covert Mandalorians was because his flashback then, you know what I mean? Anytime he's rescued by Mandalorians in that episode, or in that flashback, but also in that episode. And then, so it comes up again when he gives the full flashback in chapter 8. And then just subtle parts of the tunnel scenes, and when the armorer tells him that he and Baby Yoda are a clan of 2. So nice. That's just like a thing that pops up in a bunch of different episodes. It was used again for Bo-Katan being like, "This is the way." That's when it right when it drops in, which is funny because it's like she's dropping the sort of cultural ritual that he does as his version of Mandalorian. I don't know, and it's just sort of they're like sort of contrasting, but still share backgrounds. And then the last one I have is Moff Gideon's / this show's Imperial theme, which is, I know it, but it's not coming back to me. Stall for me, Spencer.
Yeah, you're all good. I assume you're talking about the one that plays whenever they're going to crash, or right before he crashes the ship, and Moff Gideon shows up on the little hologram thing and says, "Long live the Empire." I assume that's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the theme.
Yeah. And so there's a bass and it's like dun 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 dun, and then there's bass and it's like dun 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 dun. It's really hip hop. It's really cool. I'm anticipating it being used in a very unique way for Moff Gideon, maybe in one of his like little more intimate scenes later. Yeah. That'd be cool. But yeah, it's very effective every time it's used. It's not very altered. It's not altered that many times, even though it shows up multiple times in chapters 7 and 8, and then this one. But it's effective either way. It's just like this really bold new take on an Imperial theme.
I love his theme. Is that it for the music segment?
Yes, man. That is. I'm probably gonna do a little bit more of this for the future episodes. I should have done this for the last 2. But I'm starting to pick up on stuff.
Yeah, man.
And I don't know. When I'm watching a show, sometimes I'm like, oh, I've heard that before. That's not. Give me some new stuff, Ludwig. But now it's like, I've heard that before. I see what you're doing now. but also
Heck
give
yeah.
me some new stuff. Give me, hopefully next episode, Baby Yoda does something interesting and they bring back his sort of mystical theme.
Mhm.
But yeah, music is fun. How am I doing there on time there? How much
We
did
we did good. We're only close to like an hour and a half, so our normal episode length. So we're doing pretty good.
Right.
Which is where I will start to outro this podcast. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian. I mentioned it last week, but I'm gonna mention it again. I guest starred on the GNAG podcast last week, and me and Dakota talked about what it was like to be a podcaster and what all goes into it. Really interesting stuff. I would suggest going and listening to that. I kind of talk about the future of this podcast a little bit on there, or at least what we know so far. If you want to go follow us on Instagram, I am spncr.c on Instagram. Christian is Mission Kriller. Go follow the podcast, Last Star Wars Pod, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Yeah, Christian just showed me that he found the episode. It's really awesome. So go follow us on all of our socials. If you want to listen, or if you want to show your friends our YouTube channel, we post all these episodes onto YouTube under the Last Star Wars Podcast. So give us a listen, give us a subscribe and a I don't know, like button. I don't know how YouTube really works, but thank you guys for listening to this episode of Mornings with the Mandalorian and the Last Star Wars Podcast. We'll see you next week.